Hello there, Swahili Nation family. Welcome back to another recap. I am Wangel Zalalam, and the first story I want us to discuss comes from Nigeria. Nigerian government wants to regulate social media. The government is making plans to regulate the use of social media, Nigeria's Minister of Information, Lai Mohammed, said on Tuesday in Abuja. Quote, "It has reached a level that the government may just no longer fold its arms and allow this to continue." Mohammed also said no responsible government would want the activities of social media capable of setting the country on fire to continue. He, however, assured stakeholders that the responsible journalists have nothing to fear, as the government's intention is not to gag the media. It's a tricky topic for sure, because it can be black or white. At the end of the day, if we're allowing the government to dictate who they're going to silence or who they're going to allow to have a platform, it's going to be really tricky. But at the same time, we also know the other side of the spectrum where, when people can say anything and Photoshop things and create civil wars. We've seen it all. So it's really hard to be on Nigeria's government side, because at the end of the day, we've seen it when it came to the End SARS movement. There were so many things that were exposed that the government wouldn't have wanted to come out. But now, if they're allowed to regulate, will they really allow the information to come out? It's up for debate. Sudan's military cuts off internet ahead of protest. Internet access has been cut in Sudan ahead of nationwide protests on Thursday to press for civilian rule. Internet monitoring organization NetBlocks reports that the internet access was disrupted across the country. The protesters have been using social media platforms to organize. It's plain and simple. The Sudanese people want a civilian rule. They want a civilian government. They feel like what they have done so far has been hijacked when it comes to removing al-Bashir, and they really worked hard to change their government, their situation. And now that the military transitional government is in place, if they feel like they are not moving fast enough, they feel like they are appointing people that the Sudanese people do not approve of. So at the end of the day, I believe they have every right to ask for a civilian government. So when they're out there protesting, shutting down the internet, harassing the protesters, there are so many people that lost their lives. All this for what? To stay in power? I thought the whole reason of you being there is to be a transitional military government. You're not supposed to stay in power. You're supposed to give that seat away to the next person that the Sudanese people want. Hold an election. That's what the people want. But it seems like there's a disconnect between them, and the more they're protesting it, the more aggressive the military is becoming. Only 4 out of 55 African leaders attended Zelensky's call showing neutrality on Ukraine and Russia. Western governments have tried to rally the nations of Africa to join their war on Russia, but the vast majority of the continent has ignored their pressure campaign. For months, Ukraine attempted to organize a video conference between the African Union and the Western-backed leader Zelensky. France and Germany put heavy pressure on African countries to attend the Zoom call, which was held on June 20. The conference ended up being a total failure. However, the heads of state of just 4 out of the 55 members of the African Union joined the meeting. In other words, 93% of the leaders of the African continent did not attend the video conference with the Ukrainian president. At this point, it should be clear for the West to see that African countries want to stay neutral. They don't want to get involved between Russia and Ukraine. They don't want to be forced into picking a side. But if they're being forced to pick a side, it looks like a lot of African countries are moving towards a certain country, let's just say, that the West will not be happy about. So I think they should just leave us alone to be neutral and deal with our own business. Protests erupted across Spain on Sunday evening after the mass killing of at least 37 people. They died on Friday trying to enter the Spanish enclave of Melilla in North Africa, a colonial legacy that borders Morocco. Anti-racists held angry mobilizations in cities including Barcelona, Madrid, Granada, and many more are planned for the next week. Moroccan security forces acting in alliance with the Spanish National Police and the Civil Guard crossed the barrier between Morocco and Melilla. They hit, beat to death, and drove back migrants who had managed to break through to Melilla. It was so sad to see our people massacred like that, all because they wanted to cross over. All because they wanted a better life, a better situation for themselves. We don't want our people to immigrate illegally because, it's not worth it. The risk is just too high. And I am a believer of working where you are at and trying to build yourself where you are. At the end of the day, even after you cross, you're not wanted there. The kind of animosity our people face is just sad. But at the same time, when you look at other immigrants, how they're being treated versus the Africans, it's just so clear to see how we're not treated the same way. The Ukrainian immigrants with blue eyes and blonde hair were treated like kings and queens, and it was just so crazy how much good treatment they've received. But now these immigrants are being beaten, are being killed. What's the difference between the two? The skin color, the eye color, the hair color? What is it? Both are human beings, both are immigrants trying to flee their situation. It's just really sad seeing this, the double standard, the massacre, and our people just dying because they wanted a better life for themselves. But my advice to our people is, let's just try and do this where we are, in our own continent. I know it's easier said than done, but at the same time, many people are doing it. It's harder, I get it, and it's gonna take more time, but what we're gonna build now is gonna help the next generation, and I think it's worth it. Anyways, fam, let us know down below what your thoughts are about this. I'll see you next week. Bye.